Today we are counting our blessings as we identify our failures in the garden. Welcome to Family Homesteading of West Texas. We are a homeschooling homesteading family of 9. We grow, cook, and preserve most of our food from scratch.
Good morning. So today I am out in the garden here and I'm going to talk about our homesteading life today. While I enjoy our homesteading life so much that I have a very hard time choosing which one is my favorite, I do believe that gardening is probably one of my favorites. I really enjoy most of the uh, different things that we do on our homestead. I enjoy our laying hens, which doing the chores and taking care of them is not usually my job. I still enjoy them.
Here you go, ladies.
I enjoy the fresh eggs so much, and it's a very good chore for the smaller children to learn how to do, and that's a plus. It's also a big blessing to us to have the chickens when there's kitchen scraps that we don't know what to do with, or there's different things in the garden that we don't use anymore. They will take good care of it. So that's a big blessing. Um, I really enjoy our milk cow. Oh, there's mosquitoes out here. I really enjoy our milk cow, which she is currently dry. We're on calf watch right now. But I do enjoy going out in the morning, milking the cow, uh, making cheese, and all those different things you do with dairy. I do 100% enjoy that. I guess raising meat birds is one of the things that I do not enjoy as much. I do really enjoy the baby chick stage, but they only last like maybe a week. They're just so cute. But we still do it, even though it's a thing that we don't like that much. But comes butcher day around, we always dread it so much. And then when we do it, we get to spend the day together as a family, and that's a big blessing. So in the end, it is still a blessing, even though it's not one of our favorite things to do. We also raise pigs, which is very hands off. And doesn't take a lot of time. But gardening is definitely one of my favorites and does take up the most time of all the different homesteading things that we do. But gardening can also get pretty frustrating when you fail. And we failed big time this year. And as much as I like to share all my successes in my garden, I think it's important that I also share our failures. Now, failure hurts and it's very discouraging. That just failure is one of the things that makes you want to give up, but I'm not giving up. So this spring, I put all this work into babying my tomato plants and putting them out in the garden early and covering them up for the last frost that we get, and then just to find out that they're not growing, they're suffering, and they're not producing. So that was very discouraging, but I didn't have answers, and that was the most discouraging. I didn't have answers what was going on. I thought I did everything right. I did all the research and I tried different things, tried different fertilizers, and there weren't any insects that I could find. Everything looked like it should just flourish, but it didn't. So most of my tomato plants that I planted in spring ended up dying. I did plant more tomato plants later on. Some of them actually thrive now, but a very big part of our garden, a very big portion of our garden actually isn't doing well this year, and I'll get to it in a minute. We actually did find some answers. So this is the part of the garden that looks like a jungle right now. We have a bunch of volunteer zinnias here. Um, this is the fence that I made for the cucumbers to climb up. And this is also the part of the garden that makes me very sad because as you see behind me here, most of these cucumbers are dead. And we had this issue last year where the cucumbers, they would come up, they would start producing, and then all of a sudden they'll just be dead in the morning. And I didn't have answers last year, and the same thing happened this year. They would come up and they would grow and they would start producing, and then they'll be dead. So I was getting to the point where I didn't know what to do. So I ended up pulling one of the cucumber plants that had died, and what I found gave me the answers to my failures, which isn't a happy moment to figure out what your failure is, but at the same time, when you get answers, you can find solutions. Here you go, ladies. You get to eat some kale. So here you see, this is a cucumber patch. I think this is like 2 plants of cucumbers, and it's huge. And then we have some okra. They look very healthy, look very good. And then right next to it, we have 2 plants that just look like they're gonna die. And then they're gonna look a little bit better. And then towards the end of the row, they're sick again. So this patch of cucumbers here, these 2 plants that thrive, they were planted at the same time as the whole row was planted. Only a couple of them down the row actually survived, but they're not looking good. So it has something to do with what we have in the soil. I must say that our cool season crops, well, most of them anyways, did fairly well. We had a good harvest of cabbage, of onions that actually did very good. So that was a blessing. We're still able to pick cucumbers, even though most of them didn't make it. But I'm very disappointed in my beans. I think I planted like 3 or 4 different times that I planted beans. And I'll just show you. This is a bean plant that looks like it's about to die, and I pull it out. I don't know if you're able to see and if you're able to guess what our issue is, but we'll get to it in a bit. Oh, this one is too big. So while a lot of the okra plants are not doing so well, we're still getting a decent amount of okra, which okra is one of the things that we like to have it in the garden, but we don't actually preserve it a lot or eat it like a whole lot. It's just nice to have it during the months of the summer. And you could get a lot of okra even from very few plants if they do well. Oh my goodness, we have a cucumber vine coming through here, climbing up the okra plant. So I'm not finding a whole bunch of cucumbers here, but my son already told me that when he went out to do the chores, he had breakfast in the garden. So he picked a couple of cucumbers already. That's the reason I don't find a whole bunch today. So another thing that has been doing well for us this year is peppers. We have had, I think, 4 or 5 different varieties of peppers. And we're getting big bell peppers. We have never grown big bell peppers before like this year. We also have this variety of jalapenos that grow pretty fat. My family loves poppers, and I've always wanted to grow an jalapeno that's actually fat enough to stuff it and roll the bacon around it. And this year I've found that variety. The reason I think these peppers are doing so well is because I put down about a 6-inch layer of compost and I planted them in pure compost. So I believe that is the reason that the peppers are actually doing as good as they're doing. But even though the peppers are doing well now, I do expect our growing season to end very early this year, just because the issue we have with our soil, and I found out it's root knot nematodes. Most of you are probably familiar with that. I was a little ignorant about it. I know I've read about it before, but I just thought that was a thing for somebody else. It wasn't a thing I was dealing with. And now I wish that I did read up on it more and pay closer attention. But I am glad we finally found answers. So let's get through this row and get these peppers picked. I do expect our growing season to end very early this year in the main garden. We did, however, plant a fall garden, which is a Three Sisters garden, a little bit different from what most people know about it. I planted cucumbers instead of squash, but I'm still hoping to get some corn, sweet corn, and some more cucumbers and possibly beans from the fall garden. But we still have to make a plan on the main garden. Are we going to fix the soil? Are we going to move our garden? I'm not sure. There's also some other circumstances in our life that will depend on if we're going to fix this garden soil or move the garden somewhere else. But for now, whatever is done growing, like the cucumbers that died back, I am just gonna plant some mustard as a cover crop there in hopes that if we're gonna plant in the same area next year, that the mustard will help us to control the root knot nematodes for the next season. Now this is something new that I've never grown before. This is not a, let me see, not a hota. This is an habanero pepper. Habanero, is that how you say it? But it's not supposed to be quite as hot. And I'm not sure even when to pick these. I think they might be ready to pick. They're beautiful. I know my husband's going to be very excited about these for salsa. And this is also new this year. These cayenne pepper plants. We did have cayenne pepper before, but we had the small ones. And now we have these long ones. And the plants are just loaded with peppers. So we should get lots of cayenne pepper. So what is root knot nematodes? So I'm very new to this whole concept, and I did a little bit of research, and I did find out what root knot nematode actually is. So it turns out it's a very tiny worm. It's a microscopial worm that lives in the soil. It is not active when the soil temperature is cold. So that is the reason cool season crops are still doing fairly well in the garden. But once the soil temperature comes up and tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers are thriving, um, the microscopial worm comes up, gets active, and it lays their egg in the root of the vegetable. And the egg hatches and the nematodes multiply in the root. That causes an obstruction in the root for the root not being able to take nutrients and water from the soil. Now, a very shocking thing to me is that you're not able to get rid of root knot nematodes, as far as I have studied. However, there's ways to maintain them that we should still be able to grow some vegetables, but it's taking a lot of effort. One of the things that I read a lot about is like taking 8 to 12 inches of soil, scooping out of the garden, and then replace the soil, which is not doable since our garden is a 50 by 70 garden. That would just not be possible. As far as I know, our raised beds aren't infected with it. Um, and I have to be careful to not spread it any further. I know that this 50 by 70 garden is pretty much the whole garden is infested with them. But we do have two other garden plots that, as far as I know, are not infested with them. And I have to make sure not to carry roots from one garden to the other. And also, if I've used tools, that I'm cleaning the tools before I'm going to the next garden. But what are some things that we can do to to minimize them and to still be able to grow vegetables in this plot if we have to. Well, first of all, we're still going to grow our cool season crops like cabbage and onions and so on. The next thing is apparently planting mustard as a cover crop and then tilling that into the ground is the most effective. And we're going to do that, spreading a lot of compost into the garden to boost the soils. Uh, Good microbial is also good. We're also going to do that, but I'm just not sure if I'm going to take the chance to plant all these different plants just to find out that I'm not getting anything. Like you said earlier, there is some other circumstances in our life that will help us decide if we're gonna like just move our garden completely, which we might have done anyways. But I'm still not ready to just give up on this garden, so I'm still gonna plant mustard as a cover crop until it in next spring. If I decide to plant tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers in this garden
next year.
um, that I will still stand a chance of actually surviving these plants. So, despite all our failures that we have experienced this last year, I have decided to count our blessings. This basket full of vegetables is a blessing. And I'm also going to use my failures as stepstones. I'm going to use my failures to educate myself to become a better gardener. So, the one thing that I've already educated myself on when dealing with root knot nematodes, there are certain plants that are more tolerant towards the root knot nematodes. And one of them is Celebrity Plus tomato plants. Those are the ones that I've been able to grow this year yet. I've been planting tomatoes on 4 different occasions. First time I planted tomatoes obviously was a fail, and then the second one I picked up some Celebrity Plus tomato plants from a greenhouse, and they're actually doing fairly well. They are not in the exact same area, so it might have something to do with that too, that the nematodes aren't quite as active in that area. But then I decided to plant even more of the Celebrity Plus. Um, and they're right next to me here. Not this one here. This is a different plant, and this one doesn't look good. So I know that this one isn't hardy enough to fight, or this one is more. Yeah, the nematodes are just attacking it. But the ones right next to me here, they're not looking excellent, but there's tomatoes on them, so we're still going to be able to pick some tomatoes at least, and I'm grateful for that. I'm also a first time grower for pole beans. I've never before grown pole beans, and I'm doing that this year too, which I haven't been able to pick any, but hopefully in the future. So, even though in our main garden the growing season is going to end very early this year, we have decided to dedicate our time to raised beds for the fall. These 2 beds have already been planted with potatoes. We're also going to do carrots in the next 2, and then we have. So these 2 beds are quite interesting. I had carrots in them in the spring, and I decided to do some tomatoes in here as well. And this is a paste tomato variety. You can already see they're fruiting, and they get such a different shape. This is a long, thin tomato, very good paste tomato. And then I also left a couple of carrots plants for seeds. I could tell that they were going to go to seeds, and they're just so beautiful. I love just watching them.